Whoops, I'm gonna have to fix this real quick. Let's see if we can get the right desktop. There we go. All right, better. All right, welcome to the stream, everyone. How are you all doing? Yeah, so today we're going to be working on a new Gunforged UI, which I will explain in a moment. But hello, Light Comic, welcome. Hello, Prajuk. Good to see you. Good to see you, Indy Ramus. Yeah, it has been a while. And thank you for the well wishes. I appreciate that. Yeah, lots of work to do. And today's stream is going to be part of that work. So we're continuing on with the thread of giving the player more control over their build progression while they're playing the game. And one of the ways that I've done that is by making all of the weapon parts that you can get at the end of a wave. You can equip all of them or none of them or any combination of them. And that was covered sort of in the last devlog and in the last streams. But the next step that I want to do is I want to take the individual affixes, so the things that are associated or the things that improve the gun in unique ways. I'm going to take these affixes and make them forgeable or craftable. So basically what's going to happen is you're going to be able to collect all these affix runes, and then you're going to be able to slot those runes into your gun instead of relying purely on randomness of the gun parts to get the affixes that you need. So the idea is that as you collect affixes during the run, you can more or less permanently hold on to them and slot them in and out of the various weapons that you're crafting. So for instance, the affix being this, right? This adds 1 poison stack to enemies. So this would be something that you'd be able to remove from this gun and put it in a different gun, or just remove and hold on to it if you want to maybe have the option to go into a poison build later. So anything here too, like bleed, any affix is going to be able to be put into like this rune form and then freely slotted in and out of your guns. And so that's what we're going to be working on today. The UI for doing all of that. Probably not going to finish that today because it's going to be a pretty large chunk of work, but yeah, that's the plan. So let's get into it. So I've started building out this new UI here called the Gunforged UI. And I'm just laying it out very basically for now. It's not super pretty. That will come later. But I just need a UI so I can start testing this idea. So I can start putting runes in and out of guns and whatnot. So yeah, so the idea is that when you go to the Forge table, you'll be able to look at the parts that you have for that wave. So this is going to operate the same way that it does today. But then you'll also be able to switch to this runes view, and the runes view will be where you can, you know, remove and add the different affixes. Okay, so let's see what we're doing here. So this is the parts side of it that I'm working on. There's a grid here of the parts that you're going to get. And again, all these visuals will be improved once I figure out if this is even going to work. But the idea is that, so you'll have all your parts over here, you'll be able to click on each one and then immediately see how that changes your weapon. And then you'll be able to use A and D over here to toggle between the left and right guns to see how the stats affect each one. And then that's going to be the same UI for the runes, basically. So I actually just have to figure out how I'm actually supposed to use all of this stuff now. So let's get it started here. So I think what I need to do is I'm going to go to my Gunforged UI here. And so I'm just generating a bunch of test data for the UI so that I can actually see what's going on. And one thing that I need to do is figure out how to actually generate this data. So I think this update test data here, what I'm going to do is let's grab a reference to the private assembled gun ingot animator, I think. Okay, and I need to mark that as a unique node, I believe. Yeah. Let's access that as unique name. Okay, and then in here, when we update this test data, assembled gun ingot animator dot assembled gun ingot that set part resources, gun manager dot get part resources for gun slot. We'll just say gun slot left, for instance. We'll add a null check in here, return. Perfect. All right. So if I've done all this correctly, we should see that this gets updated. I also want to set the title, assembled gun ingot animator. Assembled gun ingot set title. We'll just call it left gun. This is all hard coded right now, but we just need to make sure that it works. Hello, Waggle channel. This art kind of reminds me of Dwarve. That is a great compliment. Thank you. I've been, or I followed Dwarve for quite a while. That game looked pretty dope. It was certainly, the art in that game is beautiful. Hello, Domter. Welcome back. Hello, Slap the Sushi. Excellent name. I would appreciate your view on this. I've been struggling trying to learn C# with Godot. I'm new to both programming and making games. Yeah, so I think there's a little bit, it's kind of up in the air. People have different opinions on what. So first of all, let me just say, if you're trying to learn programming and game development at the same time, that's like 2 learning curves that you're adding together. So the amplitude of difficulty of learning is going to be greater than if you were just learning programming by itself. That doesn't mean it's not possible. Of course it's possible. And it may actually be the most effective way to learn because you can see the effects of what you're writing on the screen immediately. But what I would say is that if you're new to programming, concepts that are in sort of like the traditional object-oriented languages like interfaces, abstract classes, typing, all that stuff adds a lot of extra that you need to learn and understand. And so there's like several layers of things that you need to understand before you can actually fully grasp it. And so for that reason, I would say, you know, if you're not set on learning C#, maybe starting with GDScript is better because it shaves off a lot of that extra stuff that you would need to know with C#, which would make it a little bit easier to learn. And the thing about programming is that once you have a grasp of the logic and how things are done, it's very easy to transition to a different language with a different set of features because the fundamentals are still the same. So that's just my thoughts. Of course, it's possible to learn C# and Godot at the same time, but just know that you're adding a bunch of extra layers of difficulty by taking that approach. So that's just some of my thoughts. You're a Godot user? Nice. We got the nice little Godot hangout going on here. All right, so this looks correct. So I'm basically, these are the stats of my left gun, which is the Moss weapon. So that's looking good. So let's, I'm gonna move the player down the screen more because I don't need to see the player. So it's kind of hacky what I'm doing. I have to instantiate the player so that I can know what the player's weapons are like, and then I can show the UI correctly. Hello, Chief. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so the idea now is we need to fill these out, this functionality where I can click on one of these and it will update the comparison here. So let's do this. There's a lot that I need to do, and it's just one of those things where I don't exactly know where to start. So here's what I'm gonna do. Let's do this. Let's create a public void set part options gun part resource. Is that what I want to do? Probably, yeah. So we're going to set the part options. Let's make this an array, or maybe an IEnumerable or something. Let's pick some parts. So gun part randomizer. I think, can I pick a part here? Let's see. Oh, you know what I think I need to do? Let's see. Pick item. Where's this from? Oh. Okay, I think I'll just use this. So, so in here, in this update test data, we're going to generate, let's say, gun part resources. Equals new gun part resource 3 for int I equals 0. I is less than resources dot length. Typical for loop here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do test gun generation dot generate, or pick item rather, and we're going to use the gun registry all IDs, and then we're going to pass in the scene tree. I don't know why it needs a scene tree, but oh, do I really need to do? Oh, I'll just do toList, I guess. So this will give me a resource item. And then what I can do is I can say resources I equals resource. And then I can call set part options with these resources. Okay. So now in the set part options here, what I'm going to do is I need a reference to that grid container. So what is this grid container? We're going to call it the, what is it called? This is called parts grid container, I guess. So we'll access that as a unique name, and then we'll do parts grid container. And then when we set the part options, we're going to do parts grid container dot remove and queue free children, like so. And then for each var part, or let's just do resource in part resource. In here, we're going to need to instantiate those buttons. So let's do private resource preloader. We'll grab a reference to that. Resource preloader dot instance scene or null. I'm gonna need a class for the buttons as well. So maybe I'll just do that now. Hello TKS, welcome to the stream. Yeah, for sure, Domter. I followed your Udemy course in GDScript, tried to convert it into C#, and has been a thing. Yeah, it's quite a bit different. And like I said, having to know all the typings and casting and all that stuff, it's just an extra layer of complexity. Of course, it can be learned, but it's just one extra thing. Oh yeah, GD Quest is great as well. Yeah, I always recommend people take a look at GD Quest. It's an excellent resource. So let's do this. So these gun part inventory buttons need to have a script on them. So let's do that. Scripts, create, game.ui.forge. And the only reason I really needed to create this is so I have a class. So I can do gun part inventory button. I mean, I am going to fill that out with functionality as well, but yeah, this is just so I can use my tooling here. And then what we're going to do is take that parts grid container, add child button. And then let's go here and let's create a public method, public void set part resource, gun part resource, gun part resource. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say texture normal is equal to gun part resource. Oh, I think I need to do this. Yeah, this is a little bit inefficient. Well, actually, yeah, I think what I need to do is var part node is equal to gunpart resource.toPart node. And then I think I can do part node dot texture. Yeah. So it's a little bit inefficient because I have to instantiate it and then I have to free it part node. I don't know of a better way to do that, but maybe I could put the texture on the gunpart resource itself. But I don't know. We'll just deal with that for now. So in here, we're going to say button.setPartResource to resource. And that ought to do it. So if I did everything correctly, when I run this, I should see 3 random parts in this little section here. So let's see how it goes. Let us see how it goes. And there ain't nothing. There ain't nothing. So why is that not working? Update test table data. Set part options. Let's do this. gd.print resources. I suppose I could do a breakpoint as well, but what do you expect me to be, a sophisticated engineer? Nah. We use print statements around here. What does the node do for the variables? I also see you auto-loaded scripts without getting them in ready. I have not been able to achieve that. Yeah, so this is, that node attribute is actually an attribute that I won't say that I wrote it. I looked at a different C# toolkit for Godot and basically copied the source generation that they wrote. So basically what this node does is this is an attribute that's in one of my C# NuGet packages, which, by the way, you can take a look at for anyone that's watching. Let me just pull it up real quick. So I have this Godot utilities package. It's a NuGet package, which you can just install into your CS project. And it gives you a bunch of extension methods that I wrote, but also this node attribute, which basically what the node attribute does is it generates code that will automatically find the node that has the member name in your tree. So, for instance, if I go in here, so when I put this node tag and this scene attribute up here, what it will do is it will look for a node called assembled gun ingot animator, and it will assign that to this member when wire nodes is called. So if I click into this wired nodes, you can see that this is all the generated code. So this is not code that I've written. This is code that has been automatically generated based on your attributes. And all this does essentially is it takes that assembled gun ingot animator and it just tries to get a bunch of nodes at different positions. So it tries it, in all uppercase. It tries it with the unique name, the %. It tries to get it in snake case. It tries to get it in, camel case and Pascal case and all those things. And then it tries a best guess if all of those matches fail, which is what this block is here, basically. So all of that is to say that it's just a nice, quicker way of automatically getting node assignments without having to write out the path yourself all the time. That's essentially all it is. You can use tracer log library. I'm gonna have to look into that. Oh, here's the reason why it's not working. See, could not match member resource preloader to any node in Gunforged UI. So this is an error that's actually coming from that Godot utilities package that I just showed you. So it's basically saying there is no node with the name resource preloader in this scene, and that's because it's right, there isn't. So I actually need to do that. So I'm gonna add a resource preloader here. Oops, resource preloader. Let's do that gun part inventory button and just drag that on over. And maybe it'll work now. There it goes. Okay, so yeah, we've got here, I don't know how easily you can see that on the stream, but now we've got a banana, receiver, a worm, barrel, and what is that? Is that a shotgun magazine? Might be a shotgun magazine. Okay, so now, what are we gonna do? So those are all good to go. So now what we need to do is select the first item. So let's do this. Private int selected part index. We're gonna say set selected part index. Well, let's do selected part index equals 0. And then we're going to do this. Assembled gun ingot. Well, let's do this. Private void select part index. And I could probably maybe do this with a getter or setter, but let's do this instead. Select part index 0. Whoops. Int index. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the assembled gun ingot animator, target the assembled gun ingot, set comparison part, and this is going to be our, oh shoot. I guess I need to store the resource. Do I want to store the resource on the actual inventory button itself? I guess it wouldn't hurt. Private gun part resource. Let's just call it gun part resource. Perfect. Okay. And then I can just, actually, I guess I can make this public. We'll make it get and private set. So that way it's readable publicly, but not assignable publicly. And then in here, what I can do is I can say part grid container get child selected part index dot gun part resource. Oh, I guess I need to cast that. Why is this still not working? Get child gun part inventory button. Oh, because this is not public. Whoops. There we go. So if this worked, then what ought to happen is I should be able to see now that it's going to compare the first part to the existing gun, I think. Yeah. Okay. So you can see now that it's put the shotgun barrel, which is in the first position, onto the moss weapon, and then it's also generated all the differences. So that's working as we expect it to. So now let's connect to the pressed signal here. So button dot pressed plus equals on button pressed. And let's do this. On button pressed button. So we'll write that up, and this is going to take a gun part inventory button like so. And yeah, what I need to do is do select part index. Oh, I think I can probably just do button.getIndex, right? Yeah. Cool. So that will select the part index of that button, and that should update everything. Now I might need to reset the part resources entirely when that happens, but let's just see how that goes. So we've got the on button pressed. Let's give it a shot. Now I should be able to select between the different parts. Oops, what happened? Oh, I ran the wrong scene. That's what happened. That is actually quite huge. What, the Godot utilities library? Hello, Justin. Welcome to the stream. What are some of your favorite roguelites other people have made? Roguelikes tend to be hit or miss for me, but I really like Gunforged. Well, thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. The Tiny Rogues is a really good one. I've got a lot of inspiration from that game, and I've also put a lot of hours into that game. So Tiny Rogues is a great one. I like Slay the Spire a lot. Most people like Slay the Spire. I've been enjoying Vampire Survivors and Halls of Torment recently. I don't know if you'd really call those roguelikes, but those are kind of inspirations as well. What else? There was another one that I played for quite a bit that I don't remember now. But I agree, they tend to be hit or miss for me too. Like they have to, I don't know what it is exactly, but. Hello, Drufus. Welcome, welcome. First time I've seen that wiggly banner animation. Yeah, so it's actually not supposed to be as smooth as it is. There's like a rendering issue. These should be like harder pixel edges, but what this basically is it's just a it's a shader that it's like a wave shader that just offsets the sampling. So if I go to ingot banner, so here the trick is that there's a sprite, which is the background, like banner part, and then the title, and those are nested under a canvas group, so they're basically rendered as one texture, and then I can take that texture, and there's a shader applied to it, and what this shader does basically is it just has a wave over time. And it just offsets the UV, the sampling UV, according to that wave. And yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, you don't want to necessarily get into add-ons and everything before you've fully grasped what's going on in the engine. Okay, so yeah, let me see if I can collect or click these other items here. Oh goodness. So yeah, I do need to reset the entire thing. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a new function, private void reset gun stats, I guess, or gun preview, I guess. We'll grab the gun manager, set the part resources for the current slot, which we'll also have to turn into a variable here, but that's all right. Okay, and then in here, reset gun preview. We'll call it there. That ought to do it. Or maybe it won't do it, actually. I'll just put those in separate steps here. Or I guess, wait, is that not... Oh, that's not even necessary. I don't know what I'm thinking. Never mind. Okay. So if I reset the gun preview, that should do it. And then when I do select part index, I'm also going to need to reset the gun preview. So it resets all the parts and then it overrides it with this new comparison part. So now let's take a look at that. Okay, so you can see now that I can switch between like the receiver. If I switch off of the receiver, it resets to the MOS receiver. So the old parts are not sticking around when I do that. Excellent. All right. So that is good. So what we need to do is we need to, oh, that's not good. Set comparison part. It's resetting the title here. Why is it resetting the title? I don't want it to reset the title. Please don't. Set comparison part. Oh, it's setting the title here. Do I want to do that still? I'm gonna have to think about that. I think what I'll do though is I'll just bring this out and then call update gun preview title here. Okay, so now let's keep track of which gun is actually selected. So let's do gun slot selected, or let's do gun preview slot, I guess. Start with the left one, and then in here, we can replace this with gun preview slot. And then here, gun preview slot equals player gun manager dot gun slot dot left. Do left gun and then right gun. Okay. Let's get the weapon switching done now so I can switch between my two guns. So, I'm looking into this dual part UI here because I think I just want to copy and paste this. All right, and then what I want to do is I'm going to create a new method. Private void toggle weapon preview. Gun preview slot is equal to basically just this. So we're just going to select the opposite one that's currently selected. So let's do that. We're going to say if event is action pressed, move left or move right. Toggle weapon preview. And of course, when we do that, we're going to need to also do this. Reset gun preview. Just like so. And then we're going to just call select part index with the selected part index just to update that preview. And if all of that worked correctly, we should be able to swap between the left and the right gun and see the active comparison here. Okay, cool. So yeah, you can see if I put the bone barrel on there, you can see that it applies to both guns now when I swap between the left and the right. Cool. All right, we're slowly getting there. So there's more to do on this UI, obviously, like lots of animations and fix the layout and do all that stuff. Also putting some kind of part selection indicator here with a brief description of the stats and whatnot. I think it's going to be really important, but yeah, core thing is just to get this working so I can actually test it out. So there's all the parts that I can select. Now, obviously, we need to be able to click to equip a part. So perhaps that should be the next thing that we do. And yeah, what's the best way to do that? What is the best way to do that? It looks like, so I can put a button here that just says equip. Yeah, I think that'll work. I think that'll do. Okay. Oops. Okay, so let's do... Yeah, let's just put a button under there. How are we going to do that? Parts grid container. So there needs to be another vertical container here that will contain the parts grid container. Now the problem is that all of this sizing has gotten screwed up. So let's go to this sizing, expand, shrink center. There we go. Let's create a button. We'll call this equip button. And let's make that a unique name as well. And we'll write equip here. All these buttons are placeholder temporary functionality. They're going to be made much nicer at some point. Okay, so let's go ahead and connect to that equip button then. Node, private button, equip button. And then in here in the ready, what we can do is we can say equip button dot pressed plus equals on equip pressed. So there's a couple of things that need to happen when we press the equip button. Firstly, it needs to change your current gun part. So what are we going to do about that? So we're going to say var resource is equal to parts grid container dot get child as the part inventory button with the selected part index. And we're going to say dot gun part resource. So there's our gun part resource. And then what are we going to do? We need to get the gun manager. So gun manager equals this dot get player dot gun manager. We'll just do a quick check in here. If gun manager equals null, return. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say gun manager dot add gun part. I think that's what I need to do. Or is there something else I need to do here? I suppose I can go to my dual part UI and see how this works. Oh, I think there's like a, let's see, slot selected. Okay, so part selected here. On part selected, what happens in here? Add gun part, part resource to part node with slot. Okay, so that's what I need to do. So we're going to say add gun part resource dot to part node, and then the slot, which is the gun preview slot. Perfect. But once we've added that now, we actually need to rebuild the part options here. Oh, let's rename this correctly. On equip button pressed. So these part resources here, I need to basically carry over. So it's basically going to be like a drop-in replacement. So when you select a part from the grid and you equip it into your gun, the old part then gets inserted into that grid. So you can freely swap between them, but it's just a matter of updating the UI to reflect that. So I think what needs to happen is, firstly, I need to figure out how to get the part that is replaced, which may actually be at the gun upgrade table here. Okay. Yeah, I basically need this. So this block here detects the type of the part resource that is being slotted in, and then determines, okay, what is the existing part from the player's gun. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's grab the current gun is equal to gun manager.getGun at slot, gun preview slot. Here we go. Okay, so that's the replacement part. So I think what I need to do is store the part resources that are currently configured here. So private. This will probably be easier if I just make it a list. Gun part resource. Let's just call it available part resources. Available part resources dot clear. Do I want to do that? Yeah, available part resources dot add range part resource. Part resources is what it should be. Okay. All right, I think that's probably fine. So now down here, when the equip is actually pressed, I need to, basically what I need to do is I need to filter out. So I need to do available part resources. Let's see, var new resources equals available part resources dot where. Do I want to do that? Actually, let's just do this. Var old index is equal to... Do I need to do that? Sorry, I'm just kind of hemming and hawing about what to do here. I might just actually make this an array. Sorry about it. Make this an array. Oh, but then it becomes harder to... Okay, whatever. Whatever. We're keeping it a list. Whatever. I don't care. YOLO. All right, so the old index is we're going to do available part resources dot find index of the... resource, I guess. Why doesn't it like this? Let's see. Okay, so find index where the item, the element is equal to the resource. It should be the same reference, so it should be fine. So that's our old index. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say available part resources old index is equal to this replacement part. And we're just going to duplicate the replacement part just in case. Let's just say if replacement part equals null, we're also going to return. That should never be null, but might as well just add that condition in there. Available part resources old index. So I think this is where I need to do this. Var new list is equal to available part resources dot to list. So I'm not mutating the original list. Then I can say new list old index is equal to replacement part dot duplicate. And then what I can do, oh goodness, add the new resource to the player, and then I can say set part options new list dot. Let's just do new list, and then we'll change this to an I enumerable gun part resource. Okay, that should work. Okay, so just to recap, so basically what's going on is we're getting the resource that's in the grid that the player has selected, and then we're also getting the resource that's currently on the gun. And then we are grabbing the index of that item in the grid and just swapping out. So we're taking that index and putting the old part into that index slot, and then taking the new part that the player selected and putting it on the gun. And then if we call set part options, this should update the UI. But I think it's, since this is select part index 0, I think that's going to set the player back to the initial one. So I'm just going to pass in selected part index here, which could produce an error if this is ever like a size that's different, but I don't think that will be the case, so we will not worry about that. Select part index. Okay, I think that's probably fine. Let's see what happens. Hello, Toby. Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for watching. And also welcome to the stream. Okay, so now let's see if this works. So I'm going to put this lightning barrel or the lightning magazine on the gun. Boom. It did not work. Oh, no, it did. Oh. It did work. So that there it is right there when I select this barrel. The problem is, like, since it's reselecting the new slot, or the new, it's reselecting the old item, which makes it look like the gun preview hasn't changed at all. So there needs to probably be something. So like if I put this barrel on here, I can just go equip, but then it goes back to like, it looks like it didn't change, right? Until I switch to a different part, and then it's like, oh, there's the sniper barrel now. That's not exactly super intuitive. How am I gonna fix that one? Well, maybe I don't need to worry about that just yet. It does need to be fixed, but I'm not sure it's worth spending the effort on just yet, since I need to figure out what I'm doing here. Could always just have like maybe an empty like none option here that it just resets to by default, so that you can just see how your gun is looking. But I can put things on the other gun too, so I could equip that there. So this is just like the nice quick way to configure your gun. So you can go, okay, I want to put this part on that gun, and then let's see. Let's put that, maybe that barrel right there, equip that. And then when you switch to the runes, it's going to be much the same thing, being able to remove and add affixes to your guns freely based on what you've looted during the run. So that's kind of what we're going for. Lots of work to do, but we're gonna get it done. We're going to get it done. Hey Benja, welcome to the stream. Will I ever consider adding membership here on YouTube? I'd be glad to join it. Well, thank you for offering. I really appreciate that. I probably should get that set up. But you know, if you're interested in supporting me, honestly, the best way that you and everyone watching can support me is by visiting the links in the description below. Any wish lists for Gunforged are super helpful. If you want to learn how to make a game in Godot, you can purchase one of my Udemy courses. The link for that is in the description below as well. Or you can buy, I have a couple of published games on itch and Steam that are being sold. So if you want to buy one of those to support me, that's always welcome as well. So there's a number of ways you can support me if you're interested in doing that. And I like that option too, because it's like, you know, you're getting something in return. Like, I know this is like entertainment and it's a nice stream and everything, but I feel better about selling courses and games because then it's like you actually get something for it, you know, in a permanent fashion. So yeah, but I may set up a membership at some point. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so what am I doing? Right. Okay. So this UI is actually basically functional. I mean, that's basically all I need to do. Well, it's not all I need to do, but it is functioning as intended, minus all of the animations and whatnot. So now the fun part is going to be figuring out how we're going to build the rune UI and be able to slot in and out like affixes and whatnot. That is going to be a much more difficult chunk of work, I think, which we are going to get started with in just a few minutes. But first, I'm going to take a quick break, and then when I come back, we will be working on that rune UI. So I'll be right back in a few minutes. Also, welcome Ni Gramonti and Sergio Gomez. Yeah, that's a good point, Sergio. That's a good point. Maybe I will set that up. All right, give me a few minutes and we'll be right back to continue work on this UI. All right, I'm back. All right, let's get started on this. So actually what I'm going to do first is I'm going to commit what I have so that at least that much is locked in. So start work on new Forge UI, commit and push that. All right. What are we going to do now? So the runes, it's largely going to be very similar. And so I'm kind of debating, do I try to make all of these UI elements multi-purpose, or do I build a new set of nodes for this? I think what I'll do is I'll start with building the new, just like a duplicate set of nodes. And then what I'll do as a second step later, once I've finalized the functionality, is then like unify things where they can be unified. But I don't want to paint myself into a corner just yet. So I think what I'll do, yeah, I'll just basically duplicate this stuff. Yep. All right. So for instance, like this inventory button probably needs to be different. So let's remove that. We're going to call this the runes grid container. Equip rune button. Weapon navigation container. I guess the weapon navigation container is going to be the same. Yeah, so I guess... I honestly wonder, maybe these don't even need to be separate. Maybe they don't even need to be separate screens, right? I might be able to just put the runes on the same screen, I think. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Never mind what I said. Never mind what I said. We're going to duplicate this. Yeah, I think there's a lot more room on the screen than I was anticipating. So my friend, he's a UX designer. He gave me some designs to work off of. Just thinking through the user experience of this screen. And the way that it's designed is that let's see if I can show you. Yeah. So the way that this is designed is that, so this is kind of the layout that we're doing, right? We've got the parts over here and then the weapon preview there. But then there's these tabs at the top, so you can switch to this enchant mode, and that shows you all the runes that you can slot into the gun. But I honestly think that these mock-ups are actually taking up more space than it actually does in game, so maybe just get rid of the tabs and put the forging of the weapon parts and the runes on the same screen. I think that would probably be fine. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. But yeah, it's super, super helpful. He helped me a lot with thinking through all this, and he did all those designs, so. Okay, so let's call this the rune grid container. And we need to create a new type of button here. So texture button, nope. Oh my goodness. Texture button, thank you. This is the rune inventory button. Put that in the forge. Add a script. Okay. And so here's the thing I'm going to need to do. I have a lot to do. I don't have icons for any of the affixes or the runes, so I'm going to have to do that at some point. But for now, what I'm going to do is do public void set affix, gun part affix. Okay, and yeah, I guess, yeah, I gotta figure out how I'm doing this. I'm just gonna get something stubbed out, but I'm not entirely sure where I'm going with this yet. Okay. Well, regardless, this is going to need to go into that resource preloader. So let's go ahead and drop that in. rune inventory button right there. The rune grid container, cool. All right. So let's do this. Public void set rune options. Gun part affix. Let's do enumerable gun part affix. I guess I should probably just be consistent in my naming here. They're going to be called runes from the UI to the end user, but throughout the code, it's all called affixes, so got to be consistent. All right. So let's do this. Let's do runes grid container. Perfect. All right. Runes grid container dot remove and queue free children. For each var affix in affixes. Rune inventory button. I suppose I should have called that affix inventory button. Oh well. Set affix. Affix. Button pressed. On rune on affix button pressed. Well, dang it. I'm already messed up my naming here. On rune button pressed. Okay. So I have no clue what that's going to do yet, because this is going to be a little bit more complicated than what is typical of how the guns are actually forged. So I need to think about this pretty carefully here. Does this want to be read-only? Is that what's going on? Yeah. So when the rune button is pressed, firstly, what I need to do is grab the gun manager. So we'll just copy and paste that. We'll grab the current gun. Well, maybe we don't need that. Let's do this. So runes grid container, rune inventory button, selected affix index. Oh no, I'm already mixing terms. I don't like this. I'll fix it later. Selected affix index. Okay. So that's the selected affix. So now the problem is that so there's a couple of problems. There's a new stat now, which is the number of rune slots that a weapon part has. So the idea is that you've got your 3 weapon parts, but each weapon part is going to have anywhere from like 0 to 2 rune slots, maybe even more. And the total number of runes that you can put into a gun is going to be the total number of rune slots that you have when all the parts are added together. So if you've got 2 rune slots on each weapon part, that'll be 6 rune slots that you can put on a weapon. Obviously, you shouldn't be able to add a rune slot, or you shouldn't be able to add a rune if the weapon is already full. If you remove a weapon part that reduces your total number of rune slots, it needs to like unequip certain runes. So there's a little bit of complexity here that I have to think through. And what would be very tempting right now is to make a big old pile of spaghetti, but I don't want to do that. So I need to figure out what is the best way to approach this. And I think the best way to approach it is going to be basically just going through this gun stats option. The problem here is that each gun part has an affix list, which is probably not going to, well, let's see. This is, there's a couple of things to consider here. So I have this gun stats object, this gun stats class, and what this does is that it takes all 3 of the different part resources and it combines all their stats into one big stats object. So here I have all the affixes, I've got all the final calculations for the bullet damage and speed and all that stuff. The problem is, so this is a really good like mediator. So collecting all the weapon part stats into one object and then doing all of my damage calculations and whatnot off of that one object, super nice. The problem is, as I'm adding and removing affixes, those actually need to modify the underlying individual gun part resources. So I actually need to go and target the resource that is on the player's gun and modify that and then recalculate everything. So I don't know what the best way of doing that is. I think what I probably have to do is let's add a couple methods maybe to the gun manager. The gun manager is kind of the object through which I do all of the gun manipulation. And so what I probably need to do is write a couple of methods. I want a method that gathers up all of the existing affixes and returns a list to me. I need something where I can call add affix, which will automatically put it on a gun part, that affix or that rune. I think that's basically all I need to do. So let's do this. Public list gun part affix, get gun affixes, and we need to pass in the gun slot here. And what we're going to do is we're kind of already doing that. So what I can do is I can say var gun stats So we're kind of already doing that. So if I just grab the gun stats and return the affixes, I suppose I didn't need to write a method for that, but it's a little bit cleaner. So now let's do this. Public void add affix to gun. Oh, you know what? The other thing that's interesting here. Yeah, I'm going to need to build a UI for removing the slots too, which is going to be a little bit difficult. All right, one thing at a time. So if I do add affix to gun, what do I need to do? So let's do this. Var resources equals get yeah, so this is one of the issues here. Since the affix actually needs to exist on the gun part resource itself, I need to modify directly the gun part resource that is on the player. I'm going to call a method get gun part resources unsafe, and what this is going to do is this is going to, well, get part resources as a reference, I guess. I just need to make sure that I'm indicating to myself that if I just do this without the duplicate, then I'm returning a reference to that resource, and that means that if I modify it, then it's going to be modified permanently, basically. So I just need to make sure that I'm aware of that. And to mitigate any potential damage, I'm going to make this private so that it can't be accessed except by the gun manager here. Okay. So we've got those by reference now. Let's do this. Gun stats equals get gun stats at slots. Okay, so there we go. All right, so let's do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say if gun stats.affixes.count is greater than gun stats.affix. Okay, so I actually need to change the gun stats here too, because I'm currently not taking account of the total affix slots. So let's do this. Public int total affix slots. Then we're going to say stats dot total affix slots plus equals resource dot affix slots. So we're just going to keep track of that, because the total affix slots could be greater than the actual affixes that you have slotted in there. So if gun stats affixes dot count is greater than or equal to gun stats dot total affix slots, we need to do some kind of error here. Otherwise, what we need to do is essentially find the first empty affix slot in a weapon part. So for each var resource in resources, if resource dot affixes is less than, or affix dot count is less than resource dot affix slots, then we can do resource dot affixes dot add. Oh, I need to put the gun part affix in there. And then we'll break. Okay. So what this is going to do is, if there is an open slot, it's just going to iterate over all the resources until it finds an appropriate resource to put on. And that ought to do it. Okay. Well, let's see what happens. So if I do on rune button pressed here, gun manager dot add affix to gun, and we're going to take the player or selected, or what is it? Gun preview slot affix. There we go. All right, so when we add that affix to the gun, then what we need to do is we basically just need to reset the preview. We're going to basically mirror the select part index, but for select affix index. I guess we'll call reset gun preview. Yep. We don't need the comparison part. We don't need to do that either. I'm just thinking here. It actually, okay, so this actually needs to work a little bit differently because when you select a rune, it actually needs to be removed from the grid. So let's just say 0. Okay, to do. Oh goodness, there's so much that's coming to my mind right now. Okay, so what we need to do first is we need to remove that item from the grid. So what I need to do essentially is do this. Runes grid container dot get child selected affix index dot queue free to do handle if affix is full. Okay. And that could be as easy as just detecting prior to actually selecting the option that, hey, the gun is full, you can't equip anything. So that could be an option as well. But we're gonna deal with that later. We're gonna queue free that child and then set the affix index, but to do, if the affix length is 0, need to disable inventory. So there's a couple of different situations here, but let's just see if this works. So when I generate my test data in here, update test data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the affix loot table manager, this dot get affix loot table manager dot pick item let's just pick like 5 of them. I is less than 5, I plus plus. We're going to pick randomly from the loot table. Oh, there's not. Dang it. I don't think there's going to be a loot table manager in here. Is there? Well, I guess we could try it out. So we'll grab an affix from the loot table if it exists, hopefully. And then let's just make it an array of length 5 here. Affix options dot length. Affix options I is equal to affix. Okay. And this could just realistically be compressed into one line there. And then what we can do is set affix options to affix options. And now the problem is that I actually don't have like a little rune texture, so I'm just going to do something really simple and just throw an arrow in there. Just so I can see what's going on. And let's instantiate rune inventory button. All right, I have no clue if this is going to work, but let's try it out. Let us try it out. Got an error here. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. Yeah, that's what I was expecting. So given that that's not a thing that I can do, where am I putting that affix loot table manager? Oh, it doesn't even matter because it's not going to be present here anyway. Is this really not being used anywhere? Or is the view owners just broken here? Yeah, so I think, I mean, what I could do is I could just do this, copy the path, do the same thing that I'm doing with the player here. This is not the most reliable way of doing it, but since this is just for testing purposes and not actually relevant to the to the real game, it's fine if it breaks at some point. All right, let's give that a shot. See what happens. So still got some errors here. Object reference not set to an instance of object. Right, I need to grab, or what is this called? Rune grid container. Oh, I named this wrong. There we go. There we go. Oh. I suppose I did something wrong here. On rune button pressed. Oh. Yeah, I did something very wrong here. So what I did wrong is I need to actually just generate a preview first before I actually switch, before I actually add. So when this rune button gets pressed, it really should just grab the index. So this should actually be called on rune equip pressed. And I'll keep this around because that's good to have, but private void on rune button pressed. So what needs to happen here is I think I need to reset the gun preview. I'm probably gonna have to do something very iffy here. So we've got to add affix to gun. Let's do this. Private, or let's do public gun part resource. Get first resource with available affix slot. Get first resource with available affix slot. There we go. See? What does this method do? Plain English. Know exactly what it does. So, this can return a duplicate, I think. Get gun part resources. Okay, so now that we have that method, what can happen here is we can grab the gun manager. If, let's say var open, let's say resource with open affix equals gun manager dot get first resource with open affix slot, and this is the gun preview slot. If resource with open affix equals null, then we're going to need to handle this situation. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to say resource with open affix. Let's grab the button here. Button. Oh, you know what? I guess I didn't really need to do that. Yeah, I don't need any of these. Don't need to pass in some extra binds there. We can just do this on rune button pressed. this should be renamed to on part button pressed. Oh, wait. Oh my gosh. I'm losing my mind. I do need those things. Right, okay. Select affix index is where I should be putting all of this code in here. So what I'm going to do here, grab all this, select affix index, rune grid container dot get index of button. Or wait, no, just button get index. I always get index and get child confused for some reason. Okay, so then select affix index right here. Okay, resource with open affix dot affixes dot add affix, and then what I can do is I can say set comparison part. Where is that? Here we go. So essentially what's happening here is we're getting a duplicate of the existing gun part resource, the first instance of a gun part resource that has an open affix slot. And then we are adding this affix from the grid onto that resource and then setting this comparison part to indicate to the UI that this is a new thing that is being considered to be placed into there. And so that's fine. And then when the equip button is pressed, which we haven't implemented yet, but when the equip button is pressed, that's when it will actually mutate the underlying gun part resource. So firstly, we got to make sure that this works, and I'm actually not entirely sure. I think what I'm going to do in here is get first resource with available affix slot. I'm just going to do this, gd.print resource.affix slots. Oh boy, something bad is going to happen here. Let's see. Okay, no errors yet. So I clicked on one of the rune things. So I've only got one open affix slot here, which is a problem because there already is an affix. Yeah, so see, no affix slots, and I don't have a UI that indicates that yet. So that's not good. So what I'm going to do instead is, well, I wonder what happens if I equip some of these new parts first. Okay. Let's equip that. Cool, so it looks like I've got one. Okay, so you can see now, as I'm selecting these runes, which are just represented by the arrows, you can see that my gun is showing the new stuff that I'm adding, right? Now, of course, this needs to be made a little bit more friendly, like I want to show an actual grid of like what is currently equipped on the weapon, but this is kind of like the UX that I'm going for here. And then I can go back and select one of these parts and say, okay, well, you know, I can put a part on there that increases my affix slots, and then here I can select the individual affixes. It's not super pretty, but it's working. And I need to make the equip button work as well. But before I do that, to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to add an extra line item to the assembled gun stats here. So all these stat labels. And I think the way that that's working is assembling stat labels here. So if I do generate stat labels, get assemble and stat label data right here. So we've got create label. So what I need to do is I need to do result.add create label rune slots root stats dot total affix slots compare stats dot total affix slots icon type. Let's just use one of the existing ones. And then the polarity map, name of, gun stats, total affix slots. What is this polarity map doing? Basically, it's just comparing the two different numbers for each category and then determining if it's negative, positive, or neutral. So if I do total affix slots here, get polarity current stats to compare stats. Okay, and I think that's basically all I need to do. So that new stat item should show up now inside of that, inside of the gun overview. Yeah, so there we go. We got rune slots 1 right there. And none of these weapon parts are giving me more rune slots. So in order to make this testing a little bit nicer, what I'm going to do is increase the number of gun part resources that's being generated by the test. And also I'm just going to make sure that this is actually generating. Okay, yeah. Just making sure that it's actually generating affix slots. There we go. So yeah, this banana receiver here increases the rune slots from 1 to 2. So if I select that, so the problem here is that if I only have 1 rune slot or 0 rune slots, clicking on these runes doesn't show anything. There needs to be better user feedback for that, but it doesn't show anything. But if I go and select a part that gives me a rune slot, equip that, and then I go here, now I can see more things. So it's a little rough, but it is working to some extent. Yeah, I just need to really make sure that this comparison UX makes sense to everyone, but I like how quick this is. This is also very controller friendly too, which is intentional. You could use the D-pad to go through this grid here, and then probably the bumper buttons to swap between the guns to see how it's working, and then probably just like A to equip it or something. Yeah, the problem here is that there needs to be a way to remove runes from guns, and so what I might even do is maybe I would put another grid on the right-hand side here which indicates which runes are currently slotted into the gun, because I don't really want to add like controller interaction to like this ingot display here. I don't know, a lot to play around with, but that's basically the idea. And now I have to actually get the equip working here for these runes. Firstly, what I'm going to do is I don't think I need these buttons up here anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and remove those. And yeah, I need to make the equip button work. So I think the equip button can probably just be multifaceted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. Private void equip selected weapon part, or gun part, I guess. And then equip selected rune. So when this equip button is pressed, it basically just has to detect what is currently being selected. I think what I will do is I will make these -1 by default. And that will indicate that nothing is selected. And then when I call select part index, I can say selected affix index equals -1. Or I guess I can call select affix index -1. I guess that's going to call reset gun preview a couple times, but maybe not. Let's see. If index is less than 0, we're just going to return out of there. And same with select part index. I might just have to call reset gun preview a couple times. I don't want to do that, but... Hello, Chisholm. First time seeing you in a long time. Yeah, likewise. Yeah, progress is slow, but it's getting there. It's getting there. Oh, this is going to create like an infinite loop, isn't it? Select part index. Dang it. Okay. Well, instead of calling that method, then I'm going to say selected affix index equals -1. I'm just going to have to rely on these actually doing the updates that they need to do. That'll be fine. If index greater than or equal to 0, okay. I think that ought to do it. And then if I do equip gun part, if selected part index is less than 0, return. And so here, put that in there, equip selected rune. Okay, so now in this on equip button pressed, we can say if selected part index is greater than or equal to 0, we can say equip selected gun part. Else if selected affix index is greater than or equal to 0, equip selected affix. So the equip button is now going to become multi-purpose. And then when we call equip the selected affix, it needs to add the affix to the gun. Okay. Is that going to be it? Reset gun preview. This is called every time an affix or a part index is selected. So let's call this update preview. Update gun preview. Maybe reset is fine. I have to update the title there too. Okay. I'm just kind of confused here what I should be doing. Oh, right. Reset gun preview. I think in here, equip button dot text is equal to selected part index greater than or equal to 0, question mark, equip gun part, otherwise equip rune. All right, I guess let's see what happens. Let us see what happens. That's weird. Oh, reset gun preview is being called. We'll call reset gun preview after the indices are assigned. Why is it starting with equip rune? I don't understand. Why is it doing that? Equip, so we got the selected affix index. Why is that not working? That's very odd. Let me just print a couple things here. Oops. Generate test data. Oh, is it because of this reset gun preview here? I'm just going to print both the selected part index and the selected affix index and just see why this is not working. It shouldn't be starting with anything, really. Well, I guess it's probably fine. Let's see. -1 and -1. Okay, so those are correct. I guess it's just a UI issue. Okay, so I've got equip gun part, so I should be able to... I can equip this shotgun barrel. Bam. I don't know why there's still a comparison part there being shown. That's not correct. Equip selected part, set part options. Yeah, I think I just want to set -1 right there. So basically, after you equip something, it's just gonna remove all the comparisons so that you can see what your part is. So if I do this and I equip that gun part, boom. So now it's like nice and like, okay, that's what I've just equipped. Here, same deal. Oh, that's 3 rune slots and it comes with bleed, so I can equip that. And then here, now I can select all these runes. That scroll down doesn't work for some reason. Might come up with a different UI for this as well, but so you can see now I can select all these different rune items, and that is actually changing the gun. And now the question is, if I actually select one of these runes, Oh, that worked, it looked like. Yeah, it went to 2 poison stacks. Excellent. Let's try it again. So lots of UI feedback needs to be in place. Lots of juice and animations and whatnot. But I think if I equip that gun part and then bullet splits when colliding with enemy, there you go. Look at that. Probably would make sense to keep them in the same order though, because it's a little bit jarring that they swap. And I can go to this one now. Ooh, that one comes with a poison stack. Oh, there we go. Rune slot, boom, and then bam. So that is essentially how the new UI is going to work. You're going to have control over which parts your gun is composed of, and the parts are just like the raw stats. But then you're going to have control over the runes that you can insert on demand, and there's going to be a way to remove runes from your gun too and put them into like a side inventory. So as you're collecting runes and as you're collecting weapon parts, you can take the runes, stash them for later so that you can create a more comprehensive build. So that's kind of the next big thing to do, is figure out how to actually remove the runes, and I think I'll probably do some kind of grid for that as well. Maybe over to the right hand side of the gun, or maybe attached to the gun somehow, but yeah, still a lot to think about, but that is the gist of it. So yeah, I think that'll be it for the stream this morning. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Nice chunk of work done, so that's good. Yeah, so if you're interested in Gunforged, you can check out the link in the description to wishlist it. Check out the Steam page. You can also play the demo, but just be aware that the demo is very outdated compared to what I'm doing now. And if you want to learn how to build a game in Godot, you could check out my Udemy course. The link for that is in the description as well. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for hanging out. And I'll see you in the next stream or video, whichever comes first. All right, goodbye everyone.